Greetings and welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast. Today I am joined by two really great writers who I'm just meeting now. I'm having a lot of fun chatting with them before we started recording, so I had to hurry and make sure we start recording because we could just probably just go on without even hit record and then be like, oh crap, we have a whole podcast to do. Once again, these are some amazing creators brought to me by Melissa Mazeris and Don't Hide PR. So once again, thank you, Melissa. I always like to give her a shout out whenever she sends someone my way, because it's been all bangers with people and projects to check out. And I read the first issue of their book, The Cabinet, which is out from Image Comics, and I believe issue 2 is out as well. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so without further ado, please welcome writers David Ebeltoft and Jordan Hart.
Thanks
gentlemen. Thank you so much. I said the names weird because I was joking I was going to mess up the pronunciation, which I almost did actually. So
A+, flying colors.
You nailed it.
Now I can just say David and Jordan.
Exactly. Yeah.
Correct.
But seriously, the first issue of The Cabinet, I got to read that twice because I read it when she sent it, and then also earlier today, just kind of refresh myself. And it is such a interesting and fun first issue that it just, on top of Chiara Ramondi's art just being just stunning and spectacular, and I want to gush all over the book, but this is Comics Coffee Metal, so I have to start with the questions. Gentlemen, Comics Coffee Metal, what are you digging right now? Let's start with David.
Okay. I know that you do audio and video, so I brought some props. I'll definitely explain them to the audio
I
side.
love props.
Yeah.
People incentive to check out both, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Comics wise, we were talking before we were recording that I have my pull list with Challengers, and they ship it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I unfortunately haven't read I Heart Skull Crusher, but I really, really want to. That's high up on my list. I don't know if either of you have read it yet, but that's the one I really, really wanted to read this week, and I haven't. So I'm going with three finds. Jordan and I were at Emerald Comic-Con, the Emerald City Comic-Con in Seattle 2 weeks ago now. Jordan, was it 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yep.
And I stumbled across Jen Woodall's series, Magical Beatdown. These are really, really, really fun. They're really short. They're 2 colors. They're via Silver Sprocket, which is a really cool little like indie publisher from San Francisco. Think hyper violent, sort of like revenge fantasy in the style of Sailor Moon. And it's basically this sort of girl that loves to play video games, and she transforms into a foul-mouthed, rage-fueled magical girl that beats on dudes that shouldn't be saying what they're saying. So if you're sort of a fan of like Sugar and Sunshine meets Kill Bill violence on the drop of a dime, but with really bright and friendly illustrations, check out Jen Woodall's Magical Beatdown. They're just super fun to read. So that's my comics. My is coffee next? I think coffee's next.
Yeah. You had to go in exact order, but yeah.
That's good. I'm glad. Coffee wise, I'm a really big fan of a local New York roaster. They're called the Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters. So I don't know if you can get this everywhere, but the reason why I bring them up is I think a lot of coffee individuals poo-poo or look down upon flavored coffees. And I usually look down on flavored coffees because it tastes like you're making out with one of the syrup bottles, on the espresso shelf, because they're so sweet and they're so sticky and syrupy, and they smell like, a Bed Bath and Beyond or a Yankee Candle. But they do this blend called Jamaican Me Crazy, which is a great medium blend. I highly recommend it. Coarse ground. I do a pour over, and it's really, really bright and floral, but it has like a small coffee liqueur hint at the end. So drink it black, no sugar, no milk. So if you just want like a little bit of sweetness to your blend, if you're tired of that, like, jittery, sort of like tar-like French roast, if you're tired of that, I would recommend the Jamaican Me Crazy from Finger Lakes Coffee Roasters. And I do know they ship. So that's my coffee. As for my metal, I should probably not mention that my playlist before this was, Bare Naked Ladies, Shania Twain, and Tribe Called Quest. But I did.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and there's not,
Listeners
and
to my show will know that though
you
metal
love it
is
of all
in the
kinds.
name, I love it all. Like,
But
I'm down for anything that's good.
yeah, and Don, because you're also a father, I don't know if like years go missing from your taste profile, from your like ability to discover musicians or discover comics or
Mhm.
discover movies. But I came very very late to this really great band, J. Roddy Walton and the Business. They're from Richmond, Virginia, and they're sort of like they're well-oiled rock and roll, little bluesy, little honky tonk,
Okay.
whole lot of bounce, whole lot of volume. But I came late to them because I discovered them this year, but they broke up in 2020.
Oh,
So
that's terrible.
so I'm going back through their catalog, and it's really great. They've been
Hmm.
around since like 2008. I just discovered them too late. But if you like really great sort of rock and roll in the Alabama Shakes or early Kings of Leon, J.
Okay.
Roddy Walson and the Business is what's been on my record player lately.
That is definitely something I will check out. In the Finger Lakes coffee, like, I'm not a big flavored coffee person
Yeah.
myself. But I think I was put off a lot of it because a lot of it is just not great.
No. Yeah.
A while ago I tried the Bones coffee. Like, their whole thing is all flavored coffees,
Yeah.
and they had a really good, what was it, an Army of Darkness one that was like a dark chocolate roast thing, which was excellent for one cup. Then you try to
Right.
have another one throughout the day, you're like, this is too much. No, thank you. But since then I've kind of, you know, I went kind of hard in the other direction of like no more flavored coffees, but I've started to swing back around. I'm
Yeah.
typically a medium roast guy now because I kind of drink it all day.
Yeah.
I have, three or four cups, a day. And I kind of prefer a dark roast, but I can only do, I know if I have a dark roast, it's one cup
Oh,
because that's
dude.
not something you can really do all day.
Yeah. It's
And then
jitter
something like a lighter,
inducing.
brighter, yeah, like lighter, brighter, citrusy stuff. I really had no palate for that, but I've kind of started to come around. Kind of a theme with everything, including everything comics, coffee, metal, is like I tend to not have a taste for a thing, but then I kind of start coming around. So like metal, like the thing I love like about metal is I say I listen to metal. Jordan, you say you listen to metal, and what's your three favorite metal bands? Three different completely fucking bands sound completely
Oh
different,
yeah,
you know and I love the fact that
probably
metal
from
can.
different decades too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. Um and I'm what, my top three bands right now are all from different decades. It's for sure.
yeah,
But
yeah. Hmm.
it's just one of those things, like with coffee too. It's just like I just like trying new things and checking these out. So on your recommendation, next time, because I usually get my coffee in a 5-pound bag from Rootless Coffee.
Oh,
They're
right.
based out of Flint, Michigan. I know the co-owner, John O'Deener. He's a drummer, musician, comic book writer himself. And he started that company a couple years ago, and I just love it. It's my favorite coffee whatsoever. But I've been trying other. I tried a New York one. Was it Utica coffee?
Oh,
I want
yeah.
to say.
Utica. Yep. Utica's good.
Um,
Gimme
yeah,
Coffee's
that
good
was
out of
really good. Their
Hickory.
house blend
Yeah.
was really good. I
Yeah.
tried them. And that's the thing that kind of aggravates my wife about me doing all this, because we'll try a new coffee. She's like, "Oh, this is really good," and then like the next time I got a different coffee. It's like, can we
Yeah.
just
She
stick with the
wants,
one?
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so but yeah, now I've kind of developed a balance of, we have our daily driver coffee, and then the one I'll use to like test out and kind of like give recommendations out for this show. uh so all right, Jordan, how about you? What about what have you been digging lately?
Also, yeah. So starting with comics, I also have a prop. That's why David and I
I love it.
get
I
along
love
so
props,
well.
guys. This is great.
I absolutely loved. If you find this, I'm Already Dead by Dark Horse and
Mhm.
Matt Kinn.
Yeah.
It actually came out with the cabinet number one last month in February, so I definitely checked it out. It's a steep price, is $7.99, which is a lot to ask these days of
Hmm.
both the stores and customers. I fully understand that. But it's a great story. It's oversized. I'm showing like the paper. It's matte newsprint, but like nice newsprint paper, and it's just like to me, this is what comics are all about. Like you're just
Yeah.
having fun.
Yeah.
You got a weird title that's really vibrant, a weird size. You're on like this newsprint paper, but this is what comics should be. And like I said, $7.99 is a lot to ask, but it's like this is the thing you want to support because you want more books like
Mhm.
this. You want store owners to order more like this, and then publishers to greenlight more like this because this is where comics go into like new territory, doing different
Yeah.
things. And I've been going to stores since I was 6 years old on my bike with grass cutting money. So it's like I've been doing this for a long time, and it's like I think this is how comics keep going by doing stuff like this. So definitely digging, and it's a great story. It's a
Yeah.
blast. So
Yeah. That's
digging
been
it,
on my
Matt
list for
Kent.
sure.
Yeah, you'll love it. Matt Kent
Yeah.
is awesome. The story's great. The art is fantastic by
Yeah.
McDade. So
Yeah.
yeah, highly
Dan's a
recommend.
bud of mine. I know
Oh,
Dan. I've known Dan for years. Um, I've been trying to get him on the show, but he's in the UK, so it's kind of that wobbly time difference.
Sure.
Um, but and he had a book that came out a couple years ago called Dega, which was just
Hmm.
amazing, and
Yep.
uh,
Yeah.
he did a Logan sketch for me with that when I ordered it, and I just one of
Cool.
my favorite things of all time. But yeah, Dan is one of those artists who's just amazing. And I didn't realize the book was in that format. So now I'm like, oh
Hmm.
man, because I was gonna try to get it digitally, but now because
Uh
that's
huh.
mainly what I do. But I'm like hearing the newsprint and all that, like I'm a sucker for that.
Yeah.
Like I am such a
Yeah.
big sucker for
Same.
that. Like if I'm gonna,
Same.
it's like if I'm gonna buy a physical thing, like it needs to have that extra juice behind it,
Yeah,
So
totally. And this
yeah,
is it. And that's like why I said like $8 is a lot of money, but like I feel like it's worth it for this. For this one, it's so cool. And it's just I haven't seen something like this in a very long time. So that yeah,
awesome.
you'll love it. You'll love it. So
Yeah.
as far as coffee goes, here's a secret. I don't drink coffee because I'm a gulper, not a sipper. And
Ah,
gulping coffee is not good for someone as high strung as me to begin with. As David mentioned, we were in Emerald City Comic Con 2 weeks ago, and we went out to breakfast, and I was gulping my favorite tea in the world, and I already had the hand trimmer as we were leaving. So it's like, hey, I got to get this under control so I can get through the long boxes in due time.
ah,
But if we're talking comics, caffeine, and metal, yeah, my favorite tea in the world. I love tea. That's what I drink every day. My favorite tea that I've ever had is from a small place in Seattle at the market called the Crumpet Shop. And David and I went for breakfast there, and they make their own tea, and you can buy
okay,
it there. And I bought 3 satchels of tea to take home, and I've been drinking that all week, and it's just been
nice.
the best. So yeah, Crumpet Shop tea. If you're ever in
I feel
Seattle,
like
highly recommend.
yeah, if your place is called the Crumpet Shop, you better be bringing the tea. Like
yeah,
it
Yeah,
better
yeah,
be top
yeah,
notch
totally.
if you're setting it up
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I mean, yeah,
I'm a
you,
tea
yeah,
fan as well. Yeah, I was a tea fan before coffee, just kind of straight black tea or
great.
whatever.
Same
Um,
English breakfast. That's my
you
move.
know,
English breakfast. Yep.
yeah. So I'm with you. I'm definitely a sipper though. I'm not a gulper. Even with everything, I used to annoy the hell way back in my younger days when I was working in a warehouse at Sears. I used to annoy the crap out of one of my coworkers because I would have a 20 ounce of Diet Pepsi or whatever, and I'd be opening it like every 30 seconds or so, take a swig, close it, and then he's like, just drink it all. I'm like, no, why?
Yeah.
So yeah, if I gulped coffee, I think I don't want to presume anyone's age, but I'm 41. If I gulp coffee, I know it's gonna be heartburn. and,
Oh yeah. Totally.
and two, yeah, it's definitely gonna be. I have gulped coffee though, because again, I do have two small children, so
you
it's
have
kind
to.
of
Yeah.
like we gotta go. Ah, let's go.
Yep.
you
You
know.
you need
So,
to.
I do my best not to. Awesome. So you got the Megadeth shirt on now.
Yes.
People who listen to the show regularly know I'm not the biggest Megadeth fan. I do like some songs, and I saw you pop on. I'm like, oh, Megadeth. Oh, it's okay. We'll have fun razzing
We're,
each other.
We will.
Megadeth,
We
we'll
will.
work through
Metallica.
it. Yeah.
But then I'm like, I can't go too hard because you got that awesome spinner rack behind you.
Oh
And then you
yes.
showed me,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and then you showed me something else.
Oh
that
yeah,
I'm like,
this
oh,
this this right
Jordan
here.
right
The
now, for the audio, Jordan's bringing out a just a gorgeous looking Gibson white flying V, which is just,
yeah, the
you know.
flamethrower. As we call it.
So
No one
I had to
calls it that. I
I
don't know.
had to come back around and be like, all right,
Thank you.
knives
Let
down.
me further lower the knives to you and to everyone listening. So I do love Marty Friedman. That's why I love Megadeth. I think he's a
Yeah,
phenomenal guitarist. As a
no doubt.
guitarist, he is
Yeah.
incredible. But I love metal, and hopefully I'm forgiven for the Megadeth shirt because I share a birthday with Lord Ronnie James Dio himself. So when you're bored on
Yeah.
God's birthday, like you have to love
Yeah.
metal. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's
And
where it all
this
started.
this isn't a no Megadeth zone. It's just,
Okay.
gentle razzing because Metallica is my number one favorite band of all time. So
Oh yeah,
naturally,
I
but I
like
do.
Metallica better than Megadeth. I just thought that
Okay.
this would be like a
Okay.
nice pull. My Ride the
Yeah.
Lightning shirt might be predictable, and then I was like, wrong
Ah,
decision, but hey, that's okay.
no,
Home wardrobe change.
because we're talking about it now. And again, I there's a good. I could probably put an album's worth of Megadeth songs that I do like
Yes.
on that list.
Yeah.
A lot of them having Marty on there because he's just insanely
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's yeah.
And
Most of it, most of my any razzing of any Megadeth is just out of just sheer fun. Like I really don't care.
totally.
you know,
I
it's
get
like
it. I mean, Mustaine kind
yeah.
of, yeah, he brings it on himself. I get
You know,
it.
it,
So,
Mustaine, and I guess if you wanted to pick one from a time like Lars, like they kind of bring the jokes
hmm
to themselves.
they do.
You
They do.
know, even when people try like razz Kirk from Metallica about his wah usage or whatever, like he makes fun of it himself. Like he had a wah off with
Totally
somebody.
self aware.
You
Yeah.
know, he like it's and Kirk's just like so laid back, and he's a nerd like us. It's like I can't no, like I'm not gonna
Exactly. He's a
I'm not gonna judge
comic
that guy.
nerd on top of it. It's like no one can
Yes,
hate on Kirk. He's a comic nerd. Come on, he's one of
yeah,
us. But
yeah. I've talked to people and they're like, how long do you plan on doing the show or whatever? I'm like, I have two end goals in mind. I will stop this show when I reach number 666, just because it's funny,
have to. Have
Yeah.
or
to.
maybe 665, just to have that one extra there. Or if I ever get to interview Kirk Hammett, like either one of those things happen, I can shut down the show. I'm fine. I'm good. Task
All right.
job done.
Well, we'll help you get there one way or another because
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
comic metal fans, we gotta help each other out.
So
Um,
what have you been enjoying lately, metal wise?
Metal wise, well, it's funny. Like, I'll listen to everything, but I texted David today too. I was like, hey, if we have to talk about metal, you should. This is what you could talk about. And I sent him Electric Callboy. We got the
Oh,
moves, which I haven't
yes.
watched for like a year. And then I was like, oh, I should send this to David just so he has something
Yes.
to talk about. And I rewatched it. I'm like, man, this is like Tim and Eric meets Rammstein. Like, I forgot how
Yeah.
funny that video is and how funny they
Yeah.
are. So, yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I rewatched it twice today. I was like, this. I was just sitting here laughing. Like, it's
Yeah.
so great.
Electric Callboy. Like, I got on a couple mailing lists for some record stuff, and I got a
Yeah,
chance to like listen to the techno album early. A couple
yeah,
weeks early, and I'm just like,
uh
God,
huh,
like I was there with like when I heard about them after like the fifth like a one remix of Hypa Hypa with
yeah,
We Butter the Bread with Butter did
uh
their
huh,
remix with it, and I'm like, this is kind of this is fun. And then then they came out with We
yeah.
Got the Moves, which was just like I sent that to everybody. Like I just like you
I
gotta listen
know
to this. You gotta
it's
listen to
so
this.
good. Yeah,
And then that was it Hypa Hypa and Pump It.
yep,
Those are still on my treadmill playlist.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
because they're so ridiculous, but they're so good. Like
I know
everything
they're good
about it is just
musicians.
so
That's what
well
makes it
done.
work.
Like the
Yeah,
drops come in the right places, the riffs. Yeah,
hmm
Rammstein. Like you
yeah,
cannot like it is just perfection of just all these crazy things. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm just kind of wondering, like, you know, since they've had the name change and all that, like, are they going to break it big? Like, are they going to
yeah.
like make that crossover? Because I follow their on YouTube, there's a guy called Tank the Tech, and he's kind of
Mhm.
become he's been the road manager a few times on tour,
Okay.
assistant road manager, and so you're kind of seeing like these huge crowds just on their solo tours, just going nuts for this band, and I'm just wondering, like, I feel like they just need that one song of the summer to come
Yeah.
out.
Or to like be in a movie
Yeah,
or a
soundtrack.
TV
Yeah,
Yeah.
show, or like
yeah,
to be in the right on the right like scripted show or movie
yeah,
in one way,
yeah.
and just like Master of
They just need to
Puppets
get
with Stranger Things. Yeah.
that one big bit of exposure for people to be like,
Mhm.
"What is this?" And then
Yeah.
it's game over.
Yeah.
Um, is there a lot of like newer bands you're kind of into, or besides
Um Not newer bands, honestly. Like I'm a big thrash guy. Like
mhm.
I love my 80s thrash, which you can see David and I really folded into Trent, the
Yeah,
sidekick
yeah,
character,
yeah,
where
yeah,
we created a fake thrash band and a logo, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. So yeah, that's very indicative of my taste. My favorite song of all time is Battery, which some say is the best thrash song of all time. So that's I'm a
definitely hard
sucker
to
for
argue.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
definitely hard
I'm
to
just
argue that.
crawling back up from the Megadeth hole. That's
Yeah.
my goal. So, yeah.
No, I mean, you could button that
Uh,
shirt, Jordan. To the audio listeners,
I
you
know
you haven't buttoned it.
that's true.
I appreciate you
That's
staying
true.
strong.
Here we
Yeah,
go. Here we go. Here
no.
we go. Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I will
Nope,
say
nope. I'm
I will
rolling
say
with
this
it.
about Megadeth. They always had a good aesthetic with their imagery.
Hmm.
Yes.
It just screams thrash
Yep.
metal. Like it just screams
Yes.
it. So
I would agree.
I give all respect to them there on that. Um, so when not to leave you out of the conversation, David.
No, no, I'm good.
When it comes to metal, and sometimes when there's people who come on the show and they're not really big metal fans or whatever, I like to try to find an in for them, by like, because there's the metal community, the metal genre it's a medium. It's not a genre, it's a medium at this point, you know. So I'm you trying to think of like something that would be up your alley in terms of metal, all that. Are you someone who's like, you can handle someone doing like like guttural screaming or anything like that, or
Yeah.
is it like, nah, no
Well,
thanks?
my relationship with metal is it's very accepting. I'm very open to it. I
Mhm.
mean, I did Biohazard back in the day. I actually went
Okay,
to a
okay.
Biohazard ICP concert in the late '90s in
Oh, all right.
Minneapolis. Biohazard opened up for ICP. Good times. I was really into Rage Against the Machine.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's one of the things that even though I think sometimes lyrically and definitely musically it's not necessarily angry, but I just hear anger, and when I listen to
Mm-hmm.
music, I just can't be angry. Like I just can't. It doesn't pump me up to the point where I'm like, yes, I feel great. It pumps me
Hmm.
up to the point where I don't like anything around me. And so
Okay.
like screaming, guttural screaming, and even a lot of Metallica, even a lot of Megadeth, man, it's just like I'm like, why am I angry? And I think it goes also down to the fact Jordan and I also we played sports. We both grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in North Dakota, Jordan in Wisconsin, and like all of my buddies would always be like, "Yeah, let's put on some fucking Pantera before we play this hockey game." And they're
Hmm.
all and they're all roiding out and like getting super super aggro. And like you could
Yeah.
always tell the metalhead on the hockey team, Rob Zander, if you're listening, because he was always like listening for the pickups, and he was like in the back, not getting roided out. He was in the back, just like listening to like the beauty of
Zen. I bet you he was like
the Zen.
Zen.
Yeah, because that
Just
was
like,
his thing. That was his thing. And so I grew up with metal being just very aggressive, and it
Mhm.
it always felt aggressive to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's primarily why it doesn't make a lot of my playlists. I am a big fan, or like Quiet Riot makes it into my playlist quite a
Mhm.
bit. So I think a lot more, and I don't know the technical term. Jordan, you feel free to chime in, but sort of that like late '70s, early '80s, a little bit pre hair metal, or like getting the springboard ready for hair metal.
I think that might be glam metal, maybe,
Yeah,
or
glam
just
Yeah,
metal.
like
just
Yeah,
early glam, because that is
yeah,
Randy Rhoads. Like that was
yeah,
his band until he left
yeah,
to play with Lord Oz. So
yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
And
So
that's not a knock on it saying the glam part, because that was just part of the imagery that they used. Because there's a lot of really great musicians who were around that time making just forming this new version of rock music that eventually morphed into kind of like a the with like the more traditional heavy metal stuff and all that. And then once hair metal came along, even then, like there's still a lot of like heavier influences in a lot of those bands. As I've gotten older, I'm not necessarily listening to more hair metal, but when I hear it, I can hear like, oh, this is like, this is way heavier than I thought it would be like. And but just when the lyrics come on, and you see how much lyrics and melodies kind of change how something sounds. I would
Fair
say,
Warning by Van Halen is a
yeah,
heavy. If you're listening to just the guitar tracks, like that is
yeah.
a heavy metal album.
The first Twisted Sister album, I forget the name of
Yeah.
it, but that's a
Mm-hmm.
solid as hell, just heavy
Yeah.
metal record. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of funny that we have these things, but obviously, if you like line it up next to, Metallica and Anthrax and Testament or whatever, yeah, it's gonna look a little wimpy, but it's not. It's because now you can take Metallica and those bands and put them up next to Godflesh Apocalypse and things like that, and like you're gonna be
Yeah.
like, Metallica's
Yeah.
wimpy now,
Yep.
and that's you know I mentioned like the first my top three bands are all from different decades, and I just I'm realizing now, like I'm putting it all together, like my favorite band all time is Metallica, second favorite Gojira, third favorite
Mm-hmm.
Orbit Culture, and they're relatively new. But Orbit Culture is the modern metal baby of Gojira and Metallica, just the way they
Mm-hmm.
sound. Because the guy's vocal when he does cleans is that, and Justice for All, James Hetfield snarl, kind of singing more, just giving attitude in a melody, you know.
So do
Um,
you
Totally.
do you
but
do you
yeah,
like? I'm not familiar with the second two bands you mentioned, but is it sort of
yeah,
like your top three are like grandfather, father, and then son?
almost.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
Gojira
like a
started off
dynasty.
very death metally. And I've actually tried getting into them before, but they had this album come out in 2016 called Magma, and that was kind of like their quote unquote black album, where
Mm.
it was much more streamlined. uh wasn't like super poppy radio ready, because they still had low guttural vocals, but something about the singer, guitar player Joe Duplantier's screams, they weren't like, I'm affecting this low growl voice for no reason. It was like a passion behind it. There's a reason he's screaming. And the whole album, because also in the band is his brother, Mario Duplantier, who's like an amazing drummer, like top 10 metal drummers all time. um the entire album was about their mother dying of cancer for the most part, and so you felt this like crazy emotion, and it hit me like in my mid to late 30s, like I didn't expect a band to ever do again, you know. So it's just like, oh, and then Overculture comes along, and they very much are of that vein, but Gojira is very groovy, I want to say. They
Yeah, they're
aren't
very
really,
percussive to me.
yeah, and I
Right.
love that. I am all
Yep.
about, I'm all about, like, one of my guitar right here, the black one, this Telecaster one here, that's got the Gojira guitar player's custom pickup on there. I have their amp simulator suite as my go-to for whenever I record things. I just love so much about that. But and it's not a band I would have thought 10 years ago would have been in my top 10 or 20 even. But circle back to you guys. For you, David, I would suggest you check out a band called Spirit Box.
Spirit Box.
I think you
Okay.
would really dig them.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely have songs that are angry, but it's their vocalist is female, and she has a really amazing, just plain singing voice.
Nice.
And but she also does really great low growl guttural stuff. But it's all like, it's a ride, but it's not all screaming. It's not all singing. There's definitely like more chill, mellow things, and also very groovy, heavy things, and some that are just like their latest EP, the Fear of Fears. They've have both their heaviest song on there and also like their most chill, lightest song on there. And they're another one of those bands where I'm like, when are they going to be like just popped? They did it. They collaborated with Megan Thee Stallion on a remix of one of her songs.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's so if the angry part is something that's kind of a put off, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
Though
It's
studies have shown that people who listen to metal are more happy and well adjusted than people who don't.
I think for me it's also I need bounce. You
Yeah.
mentioned I'm 43, so I came to my musical awakening during the like SoCal pop punk movement. So like
Okay.
Less Than
Yeah.
Jake, Buck 09,
Yeah.
Suicide Machines, the that sort of, but I need like bounce and energy that's uplifting. So,
No. Yeah. Totally.
to me, it's like I think my earlier angry explanation was more like, I couldn't two step to it, like that type of thing, where it's almost like I understand you can headbang to it, but it's like, how
Yeah.
do I do like a jaunty little walk to this? So yeah, I'm
That's probably why
excited.
you
I'm
like Rage.
Yeah. I mean, they're very
Rage Against the
bouncy.
Dude,
Like,
Machine,
Rage is,
great
yeah.
groove, great
yeah.
grooves in all of their
No.
songs for the most
Yeah.
part.
Well,
But I'm excited to check out Spirit Box. So I just wanted to throw
yeah.
that in there to make sure that I and I like aggression. I like
Yeah.
emotion. I mean, you were mentioning the band that had the album about mother of dying of cancer. I love when that something that deep down and that personal can be expressed through something ridiculously heavy and thrash worthy.
Mhm.
I also know that some heavy metal songs are truly about happiness and about really fun things,
Yeah.
but they're being expressed through those same
Hmm.
those same chords and the same vocal interaction. So I love when mediums can do that, and I truly respect, and I've respected metal more after meeting Jordan and having him walk me through some of the more intricacies of the medium, because I think a lot of individuals like myself previously, yeah, we just think it's screaming. And I know for a fact
Yeah.
it's not, because if you listen to the
Mhm.
words and you listen to all the amazing things that you guys really, really love and know histories about, then you're like, God damn, this is such an amazing and quite deep, well
Yeah.
of the musical medium to draw from. So
Yeah, and you could easily say that about pop music or
everything,
rap or anything like
totally.
that. When
Yeah.
you have someone who's truly an aficionado for that kind of music, you can kind of understand like the nuances and a deeper appreciation for a lot of these things.
Yeah.
With this new information about your kind of the pop punk upbringing thing, I'm going to toss Wage War and Beartooth on that list.
Oh, okay, cool.
I think those are two bands that will probably somewhere in their catalog. I think there's something there for you.
Cool. Thank you.
Um,
I look forward to checking them out. First of all, great
I
names.
try.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Beartooth,
try.
what a name!
It's a good one.
That's
Yeah,
so good.
yeah. And all that, and Jordan, I got nothing for you. You know what's good. You know,
Thank you. Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what's good. Uh, one last question for you, Jordan. Testament, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
gonna thumbs up them.
Yeah.
I love that style. So
When I was younger, when I was it 16, I'm first picking up the bass, and my neighbor across the street, he was a drummer. He was what, around 30 or whatever, and so he grew up like his thing was the thrash era. So like he had all of it. He had a DRI. He had all the SOD stuff before you would like know what that is.
wow.
And, like
Yeah.
you know and then there's all that kind of crazy stuff, and I'm like, I don't know about this. And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh man, I should have kept some of those tapes or CDs or
Hmm.
the stuff he was
Hmm.
offering me. But yeah, Testament, I just want to shout out Testament because they are one of the oldest thrash metal bands, and they still fucking kill it, man. Their new
Yeah.
albums are
Yep.
always just brutal,
Hmm.
just insanely good. Like the vocals, the drumming, the guitar, just yeah. Anyway, all right, enough about all that jazz. Let's get down to some other goodness, and that is your book, The Cabinet. Um, since I actually don't know you gentlemen, I don't know your history. I don't know how you guys came together to do this. David, I see you work a lot with screenplays and things like
Mhm.
that. This appears to me to be your first comic book project.
That's correct. Yeah.
And Jordan, this is not yours. How did you guys kind of come together? Have you been, friends for a while, or is it just kind of something that you guys kind of met and this happened really fast?
Yeah, well, Dave and I have been friends for probably 10 years, I'd say. We
Mhm.
started as pen pals. I had been writing comics, or I should say, at that point, I was trying to break into comics. I was writing comics, but they weren't getting picked up anywhere. But, I knew I needed to elevate as a better writer. And a friend of a friend knew David, who was a professional screenwriter, and I was like, well, hey, my friend and I wrote a screenplay. Can we get your notes? And David was kind enough to read a, a screenplay by self-taught writers from art school, not even like a writing program, and go through it and give really thoughtful and kind line notes, line by line. And I just learned a ton. And David and I really just kind of hit it off. We had similar personalities. Like he said, he's from North Dakota. I'm from Wisconsin. Then I moved to California, and we really stayed in touch. And yeah, then I started having comics published, and just breaking in. And once I moved to LA, in the LA comics community is what really helped me get in and elevated me. And we all just supported each other. So just had a bunch of comics come out, and then it was about, was it 2018, David, or
Yeah.
2017?
I think
18,
2018.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dave and I would, like, I'd be sending him comics, he'd be sending me films to watch. We were really cross-pollinating, and he's
Mhm.
Dave's a genre horror guy, I'm a genre guy. And then, it was just one day David said, like, I would love to do a comic. Like, we should do a comic together. And um being in LA, there's every screenwriter wants to do a comic because it's like, an easy way to sell the option. And that's usually, hey, Jordan, I heard you write comics. Here's my screenplay. Could you adapt this into a comic for me? And we'll go 50-50. I was like, oh, so I have to do all the work and then do 50-50. And what David said, and I don't know, and I think I've told him this, but like David said, like, I would love to do a comic, and I would love to create it from scratch with you, to start something new that we're both excited about, that we're both invested in. And honestly, Dave's such a good guy and such a great writer. If he would have sent me a screenplay, be like, can you make this a comic? I would have said, yes, absolutely. but
Oh
but
man,
the fact
you
that,
really?
yeah,
Is that offer
yeah,
still
yeah,
open? No, I'm just joking.
yeah, it is.
I'm
David's like,
just
It
I
joking.
just
is.
cut my workload in
Yeah.
half. All right.
Yeah. But the fact that he said let's do it together was what was like really appealing, which no one had said to me in 5 years prior to that. It was all, here's my idea, make it a comic. Could you make it a comic? And David was like, no, let's do this from scratch together. And then yeah, and it really just took off from there. And then uh yeah, Dave, I'll hand it off to
Yeah,
you
yeah,
here.
sure.
So
Yeah, I'll
stop
take the
all me
baton.
talking.
Well,
But
and also,
yeah,
just Jordan was talking about a lot of similarities. I'm also an art school kid that's a self-taught writer. This writing duo on this call here. Yeah, we've never really been through a professional program together. So we also had we had sort of a good shorthand of how we like to operate, which when you're self-taught, when you don't go to film school for screenwriting, yeah, you just have to get down and dirty, and you have to get extremely passionate about your idea, and you just have to push everything into that idea. And Jordan
Yeah.
was so kind to give me so many compliments. I'll return the favor. It's hard to meet individuals, and Don, I'm sure, because I know you're an artist yourself, I'm sure you've seen this. It's hard to meet individuals within any medium that can match your passion, but then also inspire
Hmm.
you to be more passionate. And
Yes.
Jordan
Yes.
really did that, and he also reintroduced me to the comics medium, because when I met him, I collected Punisher back in the 90s and Sleepwalker and Fool Killer and some of those like early things, but I got swayed from the comics medium by books. big long books, and like Dragonlance Chronicle books and D&D and Asimov stuff. Like that took me away from comics in my teens, and I sort of strayed away from comics until I met Jordan again, and he was like, "Yo, you got to check out this amazing book called Saga or Revival by Tim Seeley, or like."
Oh
And so
yeah.
he was introducing me to these great books, and I was like, "Oh my god, this stuff is really good." And it was way different than, as you guys know, that '90s, Marvel DC style of writing.
Hmm.
Indie comics in those early 2000s. I mean, and indie comics has always been really great. I don't want to poo poo all the other great comics out there, but I just think they sort of, they just shifted within style and within tone. And so when I started being reintroduced to those by Jordan, I was just like, oh, this is such a great medium. And this is such a great medium I want to work in, but I also want to learn how to work with it. And Jordan was kind enough to not only say, yeah, let's do this idea together, but he was really kind enough to be like, I'll help teach you how to do this. Because
Yeah.
writing for film and screenplays is one talent and one sort of, medium that is very, very tricky. But man, it's way harder to write for comics. And it's way harder to write well for comics just because, as you know, Don, it's the space is so tight. And what I
Yeah.
could
It's.
express in 7 pages on a screenplay, we have 2 panels. And so
Mhm.
it was really cool and it was really beneficial. And I think Jordan and I just sort of fueled each other by me wanting to learn and me, being further fueled by his passion for the medium, which in turn would get me all excited and hopefully sort of fuel him more. So it's sort of this wonderful. I guess we both just like kept on lighting creative fires under each other's asses for the longest time, and, until
I,
until we were burnt.
I love hearing things like that because what you said is very true. Finding someone who matches your passion on things, it just ignites so much more because as many as the dumb arguments of artists who works harder, artists or writers, I know it's hard work all around.
Yeah,
It is so much to do because I've written some things, I've tried writing some things, and I'm like, this is research. Oh fuck, I got to make sure this is accurate. Like
yeah,
this is not. I'm not like researching images to make sure something looks right. Sure, researching like facts and reading books and stuff to double check. I'm like, oh man, like this is where I'm like, you know what? I'll respect the writers, man. You guys, you got to put in that level of hard work. Not to mention just the ancillary work that comes with being the writer, because you kind of have to take point with promotion and things like that, and all these other things. But hearing you talk about the wanting to learn how to write comics and all that. I currently draw 2 books. One of them is called Spend the Night, and it's with horror director Jackie Kong,
oh
who did in the '80s she did Blood Diner.
yeah,
I'm totally spacing on the other movies she did, but Blood Diner is like the big one. She still like does like show midnight, like Rocky Horror style midnight showings and stuff that all around the country with that. And it's very much gotten to the point where she essentially wrote a series, a screenplay way. And after a lot of back and forth, because we're working on the 5th issue now, it basically became she'll send me the segment of the screenplay, and then I'll just break it down comic wise, saying like, okay, here's the pages that I think work best in this format. I'll help her break it down that way, and that's been great because she has a huge desire to learn how to do this,
mm,
which is why I'm sticking with it, because it is a lot of work. But
Mm-hmm.
when as you guys can attest to, when there's someone else who's putting in that same level of passion and work to it, you're like, you want to up your game too. You want to go with it.
yeah,
Totally.
And I've been very fortunate for 95% of everything I've worked on to be with people who are just as, if not more, excited to be working on that story with me as I am with them, and just having that back and forth and that collaborative aspect with things is just I don't know how to describe it to people. Like it's nice when you kind of like, it's like when you're trying to, like, if you're trying to row a boat together, when you get into that rhythm, It's like you can't explain like, yeah, I you say you can explain the basics of it. I make this move, you make this move, but like getting the rhythm and getting it together and having it actually work and actually, you know, succeeding and doing all
Yeah.
that. There's a feeling to that where it's just like, you know, I've done things on my own, felt great, glad I did it all on my own. A lot of work, you know, working with somebody who can not only carry some of that carry some of that weight with you, but also like is just, you're just vibing and it's great. And I feel like that really comes across in the cabinet. Like you guys
Hmm.
really just sometimes, you know, if I'm reading something that's got a couple writers attached to it, you can kind of see the seams here and there. If you're mostly if you're familiar with their works individually. Here, while I'm not familiar with the works individually, I I wouldn't be able to tell where, you know, someone else's ideas were like, you know, oh, okay, the other guy probably said do this because something's not matching right, or something's just like, you know, you guys came at an impasse and like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this, you do this, we each get one, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you know, and I especially love how you just threw us in to this world, you know, and it's something that thankfully more people are taking that chance of doing, because that's one of the beautiful things about comics and really all media. If you really get down to it, like just trust us to get along with it, to go along with it.
Hmm.
Like in this first issue, you know, there's the doodads, you know, that they mentioned the doodads. Now I read that and I'm like, now is this just this character calling it a doodad or is it called a doodad? I don't know. And it wasn't like, well, why didn't they tell me? It's just like, I'm just like, oh, I don't know. Is it? And then you kind of go along. Then you find it's called a doodad. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. You know, and you just move
Yeah.
along. And there's a lot of crazy, cool, like fantasy, interesting stuff that happens in this book, and you learn about it as it's happening and it's going on. And it's not everything is answered right away. There's still questions, and I feel like a lot of people are really afraid to have those questions hang out there for a minute. And I can understand, like you want to get the hook in with people, but you
Yeah.
know, it's also trusting yourself that what you're putting there is hook enough. And that's all before just the really gorgeous art from
Hmm.
Shara.
Hmm.
And I always love when, you know, seeing art like this where it's, you know, it appears that, you know, they handle all of it, you know, the colors and all that.
Yes. Yep.
So you can, so it feels like, because the line art style is very open, kind of flowy and free and very expressive. And then they come in with the details, with the colors and the mood and the just the vibe of everything, and it just adds so much, because it just, this whole book just feels like one whole cohesive thing that I wouldn't, if I just read it blind, and if someone said, oh, this is from one person, I would have been like, okay, yeah, I believe it, because it feels like it's just everything's working in tandem with each other.
Right.
Was Shiara someone you knew you wanted to work with right away, or is it we have this idea, we kind of fleshed it out already, now let's find somebody? Like, at what point did she come along in the process?
Yeah. Thank you for all those great words, first
Yeah.
off.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
and Jordan actually had Kiara on his radar for a little bit.
Okay.
And he did you find her while we were working on like developing the cabinet, or did you find her before that? I know that you had her on her radar for a little bit. I can't remember, but
I can't remember either, but it was an Instagram hashtag find. That's what I
yeah,
do remember.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
Jordan got some great advice. And do you want to tell a story, Jordan? I don't want to take words out of your mouth,
Sure.
but yeah, you go
Sure.
ahead.
So yeah, just thank you so much, Don, for those kind words. Just to put a button on everything you said, because I think it applies, and you and the listeners are going to get this. Making a comic to me is the closest thing to being in a band, right?
Hmm.
Everyone has to be on the same page with talent, work ethic, and vision. And if everyone involved, because it takes a group of people to make well, granted, you could be a Frank Miller or a Daniel Warren Johnson, do it all yourself and be a legend, right? But like for us, we all had to gel together, and that's what comics are. It's truly like being in a band, and then when you get the floppy, that's our song. and like
Hmm.
you shouldn't be able to tell who exactly did what or who threw what idea out or anything like that. We'll have a panel one way in a script. Kiara will draw it a different way, and it's always better. And Dave and I will go, okay, now let's change the dialogue to this. Let's change this. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's that flexibility that created what the cabinet is. It's a 3-person book. All three of us do everything. There's from the writing, design, lettering, coloring, penciling. Uh, it's us three dividing, conquering, and it's great. We're like a power trio. I love it. so
Nice.
so yeah, it's like when you have the best bandmates in the world, you're gonna make great music.
Mhm.
And like when I'm like for us, I feel like we all love and respect each other, and the cabinet is like proof of how we work together and what we think of each other. So thank you. As for finding Kiara, yeah, I straight up just searched hashtag sample comic page on Instagram, and
Oh wow.
she came up. That's all it was, and that's a tip I got from my friend Alex, who was editor at Boom. How back in the
Mm.
when I first started in comics, you'd have to mine DeviantArt, like just going through DeviantArt and then like
Mhm.
praying the email address was active of this awesome page you found. It was just like the worst. But now it's like everything's on Instagram. So just if you're a young artist looking for work, hashtag everything you do and use weird hashtags too, not just hashtag comic book, like hashtag comic artist looking for hire, hashtag
Yeah.
friendly comic book artist that's very collaborative and fun. Like get weird with it
Well, I think
because for
Hashtag I work
go
on
ahead.
I finish things on time.
oh my
Yes,
gosh,
exactly.
that would be
Hashtag
okay.
hit deadlines, I promise. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Though,
Like,
and sequential pages, so hashtag sequential pages or sequential
mm-hmm,
artist is really
mm-hmm,
big too, because there's a lot of
huge.
amazing artists out there that we found over Instagram. And yeah, we're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Do you do other pages? And they're like, I just do covers, and that's awesome. But it's when you find an artist, and I know you do sequential as well, Don, that like, it's just so nice to know that they have not only that breadth but that patience to do those sequential
Yeah.
pages,
Yeah.
because it's a
It
flipping
is
that
patience.
camera angle,
And the
it's
vision.
and the vision,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
So
vision.
sorry, Jordan, I cut you off, but keep going.
No, I mean, and then that's it. So yeah, we found Kiara on Instagram and we're like, okay, let's reach out. She got back. She was still in art school. I
Oh,
think she's 26 now, I want to
I
say. So
think
she's
26, yeah.
24. She was 24 when we found her in art school in Florence, but she spoke great English. So we're like, hey, this is our idea. Could you do some character pages and just test? We'll pay you to do some character sketches. And like, she came back 2 weeks later, and like David and I, like we just joked, like we just collapsed. We're like, oh my god, like, and then we're like, okay, here's a couple of sample script pages. Could we see how you work the camera? Because Don, like that's the most important thing. What is your composition? Where are you putting
yeah.
the camera? Anyone can draw great action pose. Like who's keeping me interested in a page of dialogue over a coffee,
Hmm.
right? That's
Yeah.
that's where you make your money as an artist. Yeah, and she sent it through, and obviously, like Image and other sites will call Kiara an up and coming artist. No, like she's fully formed. She has been fully formed. Like
You know,
she's on top of the
yeah.
mountain. So
Hearing that,
yeah,
like, this is maybe potentially her first like real published work, I'm assuming.
it is her first
Um,
What?
American comic.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
correct.
like I would not have guessed that in a million years. The storytelling
Yeah.
is phenomenal. The variety in you know in one of the releases, she mentioned that she gets to break from the grid and gets to go get crazy sometimes, and that's awesome when you get to go crazy. But some people take that idea of going crazy as being like too far. Like, well, you still have to tell the story, you know.
Yeah,
And
totally,
everything
totally.
here is just I would have assumed she had been doing this for I'm sure she's made plenty of comics, gone to school, made her
Yeah.
own comics and done things like that. But like I would have assumed someone who had been doing, had dozens and dozens and dozens of books under their belt. So that's even more
Hmm.
amazing to hear that, someone's coming up
Yeah.
like this, like you said, not upcoming. They're fully formed. You know, they're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Watch out. And it's also one of the things I do love about comics is just the variety of styles we get now. And you
Totally.
know, you guys know, like we come from the everything Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld,
Hmm.
influenced, and then thankfully that made a shift. And every passing year, it's just my style is nothing like Kiara's, but it's something I just enjoy seeing. It is a very I especially love seeing like that kind of style, or at least a non-traditional comic style in genres that are not just like colorful fancy, not fancy,
Hmm.
fantasy type stuff.
Fantasy, sure.
Even though this is colorful and it
Hmm.
has fantasy elements, there's definitely some horror type elements, and there's some comedy, and there's some drama. And I just like seeing how these styles handle these things. I have a few friends who draw in a very cartoony type style, and I always tell them, like, I would love to see you do this, like a real like nasty horror book. you
Yeah.
know
Hmm.
I want to see what that looks like, because that's something I've never seen before, and I think it would be pretty
Yeah.
cool. you know
Yeah.
and and the same thing with some of my friends who can draw really detailed and really superhero style. Like, I want to see you do something that's not that. Like, give me your noir book, give me your, like, I want to see what that
Hmm.
looks like.
Yeah. And I think,
Earlier, David, you kind of mentioned that Jordan mentioned one of these books, Revival, as being
Yep.
something to. And I should have known, Jordan, from Wisconsin, you would have repped some Revival.
Of
um
course. Of course.
I I
and
love Tim. I
Tim's
love Mike.
Chicago. Yeah.
Tim's,
Yeah,
yeah,
Mike.
born in
You know,
Wisconsin, lives in Chicago now. That's great.
yeah. And I know Tim, and this isn't like, oh, here's who I know, guys. But Mike Norton is a friend, a legit friend of mine. He's
Hmm.
amazing. I'm always glad to hear when his books are being talked about, because he's one of those
Oh,
unsung heroes of comics that just draws
Totally.
everything well. It's awesome. Actually, I'm staring at a guitar he sold me right above my computer.
Nice. Nice.
yeah.
Uh,
Tell him that he has fans.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's just amazing, and he's awesome. So I'm glad to hear that rep. But again, someone like him, like, he did superhero comics for so long, then he does something like Revival, and like all those
Yeah.
skills he had just made that book sing. And now he did,
Yeah.
he
It looks
focused on
so good.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then he focused on like Battle Pug, and that was awesome and fun, because he got to
Hmm.
go a little bit looser, more cartoony. And then everything he's done since. He had a book come out last year called the Rock Gods of Tennessee, Jackson, Tennessee,
Oh, right,
Hmm.
right.
and it is
Yep.
legit one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. Him and Rafer Roberts, like, it is like the best 80s coming of age movie you never saw, that ends with mutant wild pigs rampaging in town. It is just amazing.
That's great.
And that kind of like, just like, cool feeling and vibe from that book is something I'm getting from the cabinet, and it's something and that's really endearing to
Awesome.
me. Maybe it's my age, I mean, it's the nostalgia for the 80s type of thing.
Yeah.
I can hear twinkly synth keys when I'm reading the book. I can
Thank
hear that.
you.
It's
Thank
good.
I
Yeah.
can hear that,
you.
when things ramp up. And I cannot tell you, like, the guffaw I had in the first issue with the pumps.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and
You can
I
thank
know it's
David
just
for
a
that.
collaborative
That
effort. I
was
know everyone puts in.
100%. No, that was David. That was all
All right,
David.
Dave,
Yep.
Well, I mean,
I salute you, sir.
oh, yeah.
That was just like, chef's kiss. I'm like, that kind of told me, like, I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna like this book. Not that
Yeah.
not that
Nice.
I think that's the beginning, but like, at that part, I'm like, okay, this book's for me. Like, this
Yeah.
is just
To-
so absurd and
totally.
crazy.
He didn't
And
tell me he was doing that, and then he sent me a rough draft of some script pages, and like there it is, panel one: the blackguard reaches or bends over and pumps his Reebok pumps. I tell you, like, you put pumps in here. This is incredible.
Yeah, you have
um,
to. Well, and I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and I'm so happy that that resonated, because that actually, and it's sort of the magical thing about being creators, as all three of us are. When we do create something that then a viewer or reader sort of shares in the process that Jordan and I had when we were creating it, that's the best, because a lot of the little influences within the cabinet, a lot of the nods to the past, or even some of the great character work Kiara does, just sort of her facial expressions and stuff with the characters. Um, when we are working on it, and when we were working on it as a team, we'd share those little laughs, we'd share those little guffaws, and you always hope as a creator that those guffaws will like translate through the page, through that printing process, through that ink, and make it to somebody like yourself. So it's really cool to hear that did, because
Yeah.
we all guffawed
Yeah.
when we wrote it, and then we guffawed when Kiara drew it, and so yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love I love when those sort of follow through.
Uh, one thing I also appreciate as an artist reading this book is it seems you definitely let Kiara like just draw the hell out of the book. Like, there's not there's not like these huge panel counts on the page. There's a lot, but there's still plenty of room to have these little moments. I had to pull up the first issue again. There's with the naming of the pipe wrench, and
Yeah.
just her response, like giving that little beat where she's stopping, she's
Oh
thinking about her response and says
Yeah.
no.
no.
And it's the fact that you could have drawn, she could have drawn that a dozen different ways and it would have been funny. But like just that,
Hmm.
having that space and just the way she framed it and all that, it just, yeah. And that's one of the things where I'm like, this is like, she hasn't been doing this for 10 years. Like, you're telling me
Yeah.
this, like,
Same with
Yeah.
us.
um, but yeah,
Well,
I do appreciate, again, as an artist, like just the amount of space it seems that she has just to like be able to tell, not show, to show, not tell,
Totally.
and that's also, I think some people might be, some people who write might be kind of scared to do that because it makes them, maybe they might think like, oh,
Hmm.
maybe people think I'm not doing that much, when it's like it takes a lot of confidence in yourself and your abilities to let that happen. And you know coming from the school of making comics, like I can see that, but I can
Hmm.
also understand, well, an average reader might not, but like whatever makes the story better,
right.
and I think,
Yeah.
especially these days with independent comics, we all know what makes a good story. We all know what it what we kind of need to do to get to there. It's just having all those stars align where everyone else is on board with you. Like we keep going back to, you mentioned, you guys are like a power trio, which is perfect because power trios are often extremely fucking loud. And this book is extremely fucking loud in
I
the best
love
way.
that. That's a pull quote. We're gonna use
Uh,
that. Yeah, Nirvana. We're
I'll
Nirvana
be happy
peace
yeah,
loud.
be my guest. And it's, again, it is a book I'm really really invested in seeing where it goes. And my fault, we're an hour into this discussion, and we haven't talked about what the hell is the cabinet. What is this book about? uh could you guys please give us
Give
the
it. Give it the
elevator
speed
pitch?
run, David. Give
Yeah,
it the
yeah.
speed run.
Yeah, so the cabinet, we follow Avni. She's our teen heroine, and Trent, that's her Midwestern jock sidekick. And they teleport across a post Cold War landscape. So think 1991 ish, that sort of period where we're sort of breaking away from the 80s, but we're not truly 90s yet. As we said, Nirvana hasn't come out yet. So we're not into those grunge or punk era 90s. But they travel in the 90s to collect bizarre relics, which Avni calls doodads. And they do so because they need to summon the arcane powers of a Baroque curio cabinet to fix a mistake that Avni made when she was young, which was activating the powers of this cabinet in the wrong way and unleashing a demon that killed her parents. So yeah, tiny mistake. We could all have made that mistake when we were young, but Avni definitely did it, and yeah, and so we're basically, this whole series is about her trying to correct this mistake by trying to find these relics to activate those powers to fix it, which the cabinet can do. So yeah, that's sort of us in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's again the book reads beautifully, the art is amazing, the story is very engaging. The characters, they just, her, the main character and Trent, they exist already. They feel like they already exist and they're breathing, and they're just in this world. and I do appreciate kind of the uh, I don't know the intentionality of this, but the cabinet being the main magic thing that's causing all this,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we see her as she's gotten a little bit older, she's breaking into a video game cabinet.
Yep.
I don't know, I,
Hmm.
you know, uh,
Yep.
intentional or not. Like I just like that. I like that little bit
Yeah.
there
Oh,
of.
Don, I mean, your reading level is super super high level.
Elite.
Elite,
Elite.
elite of elite. Because
Yeah.
and I'm so happy that you saw that, because in every issue, a different character. We introduce a lot of characters coming up, but they all have a sort of piece of furniture that they are tapping into, or that they have secrets in. So
Oh, okay.
both Jordan and I, we both went to art schools. So we studied a lot of art history. And when you study art history, you learn a lot about
Hmm.
seemingly boring things. But those seemingly boring things, like a cabinet, um, we always thought, like, man, all these cool little histories that they held, all the little love letters that they might have contained, that never, that you couldn't come to fruition because you were some baroness needed to marry some baron, but was in love with the stable boy. Like, you can think about all these little cool things that cabinets and furniture of the past have, and we're just taking that tiny tiny sliver of it and utilizing it within our series. But we just love the idea that furniture holds little parts of ourselves, and that they can be way more mystical and way more magical than what we're using it for, which right now for us is keeping our computers on it while we are on a Zoom call. Um, but yeah, so it's so cool that you noticed that, because we sort of play with that furniture slash cabinet motif throughout the series.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'll keep my eyes peeled for all that,
Yeah.
and you know, and not to mention all the really cool stuff you guys have in the back matter of the issues. I love back matter in comics issues and
Great.
in collected editions. Like that's just my bread and butter. I come from, well, I guess we come from, we're not asking you to reveal your age, Jordan, I don't know if you did, but Dave and I were a couple years apart. We come from like we're getting those half-hour specials, behind the scenes movies. Like it was like a thing you would watch
Oh yeah.
endlessly. And
Hmm.
I am, you know, uh, on top of having ADHD, but I also like come from that, just having first getting access to all that kind of stuff pretty easily, and DVD commentaries and
Yeah.
all the behind the scenes stuff and pop up video and things like that. And just having those little tidbits of stuff, it just sparks that little thing in my brain where I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, give
No,
me more of this.
that's
Great.
awesome.
And
And that's our happy place too. And also that's how we learned a lot. Like I
mhm,
learned how to write and make films through those DVD commentaries, and
Hmm. Hmm.
and when you enjoy something, diving
Same.
even deeper, yeah, it's super fun. So we
yeah,
we always wanted it to be a huge part of the cabinet. Every issue is 22 pages of story, but then a lot of pages of the back material. And Jordan's the
Seven.
yeah.
All right.
7 or 8, I think.
No. Eight, nine.
Yeah.
Yeah, nine,
Oh,
nine
9.
bonus pages. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
Wow.
Jordan's the letterer and designer on the series, so he also just makes it, extra tied in. So it's not just all, text on white paper, which I still wouldn't mind. I would love to read,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but yeah. So
Well,
I'm glad that it hit well.
And
and shout out to you, Jordan, for the lettering and the design work, because it really is just, again,
thank
this
you.
feels like one complete cohesive package. uh
Great.
and that's just, it goes so that goes such a long way to just like dragging you in and enveloping you in, and just bringing you into this world.
Yeah.
And um as kind of a general kind of sappy person myself, David, I
join
appreciate the
join other
inspiration
sappy
for Bonnie
individuals.
being
Yeah.
Yeah.
your
Welcome.
wife.
Oh.
I appreciate you pulling that,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
uh, pulling that influence in there, because that is 1000% a move that I will probably do in the future myself
Please
anyway.
do. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
I was this afternoon I was literally drawing my family in a little cameo in one of my books, just
Nice.
walking our dog or whatever, while some insane person runs away. But like just having that, but also like just you know seeing stuff like that is what, again, why I love independent comics so much, because we can do
Yeah.
whatever the fuck we want,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we can do stuff like that. But it also, like, it. it creates this feeling of like, additional welcoming for
Mm-hmm.
people.
Smart.
And
Yeah.
I hope that really comes across for others, not just me, that just, you're kind of, just welcoming. And, Jordan, like with, you bringing in like a lot of your influences with the music and with Trent and all that, like just putting yourself into your stuff just unabashedly, I guess is what I'm getting at, is what I
Yeah.
love about these kinds of comics, because the story is so crazy, but we have these real feelings and histories and truths that go into it. That's just what makes it all the sweeter. Because the last time I read a book like this that I was just like instantly in was Paper Girls,
Oh,
Oh
nice.
and that
wow.
Yeah.
was you
That's
know
that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. What an
you know
honor that is.
and it is, and it's, yeah, it just has that feeling, like it's, I don't want to like I don't want to like shortchange it by saying it's nostalgic, 'cause it's not necessarily that. It's just like it just gives you that feeling like it's lived in, it's
Mm.
existing, and you're kind of getting to see it. You're getting a chance to see this, as opposed to, where you're showing me this.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, like if that
Totally makes
that
sense.
It
Yeah.
makes
makes
sense,
total sense.
you
And
know.
thank you. But
Yeah.
all like we have to really shout out our editor Chris Ryall of
Hmm.
Syzygy Publishing, and of course Image Comics as a whole.
Yeah.
I bought Youngblood #1 off the shelf as a 6-year old. This has been my dream almost my whole life. And
Yeah.
you get there and you're like, oh man, are they going to live up to like over 30 years of hype in my head about like what they are? And like the cabinet is the way it is, of all the great compliments you just said, because Image, they let us do whatever we want as long as it works. You know what I mean? Like they haven't made
Hmm.
us change a single thing. As the issues go on, it gets crazier. The bonus pages get crazier, and they've just been like champions of us, and just like, hey, it's guys, it's your book, like do what you want. Like that's the attitude. And when you give creators that freedom on the platform of Image Comics, where you can get into every store in the world, like you are just, that's the future of comics. Just like what, if you find this, I'm already dead, like take un like release your creators to let them be fans and creators and make the comic they dream of. And it's like that's what we did with the cabinet. And I'm so glad it's resonating and coming through.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm glad to hear you have a great relationship with Image, and it's been just, really good so far. Image is definitely, it's one of those bucket list things that we all want to like just once have something with
Just
Image,
concept. Yeah.
you know, just
Yeah.
just to
Yep.
have it. It'd be nice, uh I think I came into comics like just after the initial Image boom. That's when I first really started buying them, because I was reading my
Mm.
older brother's comics, which were a lot of the mid '80s Marvel stuff. Um,
Mm, yeah.
so, but like I came in like, after Youngblood 1 was already like $80,
Yeah.
or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
I think the probably the was it? Yeah, I think I started buying when Cyberforce started its regular series. I think that's what it was.
Ah.
So
Mm-hmm.
like when
Mm-hmm.
that first, I'm like, oh, I got Cyberforce #1. Or like, well, no, well, first there was a mini series. I'm like, oh, how much is the mini? Oh, and I'm,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
what is that, like 1992? So I'm like 10, and I'm like,
Okay. 12. Yeah.
I don't got that.
Yeah. 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 Totally.
So,
Totally.
but anyway, but yeah, I'm glad that this is being received so well within the company. I'm hoping that it, with the fans and the shops, that everyone's uh getting a chance to check this book out, and it's doing well, because I want to see where this goes. um
Sweet.
Before I let you go, just a couple quick questions. Is the cabinet is there like a finite end, or is this kind of a thing where we can keep going?
We would love to keep going. We're billed as a 5-issue miniseries. I don't think we're going to spoil anything by saying that we do deliver a very satisfying end to a 5-issue miniseries, but we do not end it. at the 5-issue
Yeah.
miniseries.
The world doesn't explode.
The world,
You can go
yeah. Should we rewrite, Jordan? Maybe we should rewrite. I don't know. Don said a lot of really good
Yeah.
things. Maybe
Maybe.
that
We'll never
last
come
page.
back to this
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
He's he is elite. So we should talk about this. But
We should.
Jordan and I, we've hashed out a lot. And I think just like a dream of any creator being an image, a dream is if when you love that story and when you're inviting folks in to live and breathe with those characters, you want to have that continue, just like a good television series. You don't want it to end. So we have a second arc planned. Right now, the series has been really, really well received. But like all series, we would love for it to be even more well received, so we don't have to fight so hard to possibly get that second arc. But yeah, we have a second arc. We have a lot of other plans that we love to spoil, but yeah, let's just say that we love the world equally as much as you do, and we're so thankful that you do. And yeah, we don't want it to end, but we also want to make sure that we also want to, like, pull the rug under from everybody's feet and do horrible things to our characters, because that's what good dramatic writers do, and so we want you to love Avni, and we want you to love Trent and the other characters that come along, and then we want to do those terrible things that writers do, which is treat them like crap so that we get really great dramatic things, just like with Paper Girls, and what those gals had to go through, and all the different time constraints and worlds they had to go through just to basically survive. So yeah, that's what we love to do, and we'd love for it to happen. So fingers crossed. And if you're listening or watching, check us out. That'll help.
Yeah, as long as people want it, we'll keep writing it. And if it gets to a point where people don't want it, we'll probably keep writing it anyways, because we love it so much. So that's all I'll say.
Yeah, we'll just share the scripts with you, Don. If
we'll just be posting scripts at that point.
Yeah,
but
I wouldn't say no.
Okay, great.
Okay, awesome, gentlemen. Thank you so much. I have one last question for each one of you before we go, because I don't want to keep you too much longer. But Jordan, I can easily ask you about all your guitars, because everyone who listens to the show knows that if someone has guitars, I'm going to ask you about them. I'm going to ask you about every single one of them, but I'm not going to do that. We don't have time for that.
Okay.
But in knowing you play, knowing you have a few, what is the Jordan signature guitar, if you had one?
I got it right here. It's
Okay.
I'll show and tell. So it's a Les Paul. Les Paul was from Wisconsin, where I grew up. It's a 1960s replica. I think it's from 2008. So it's a slim taper neck, which is what I love.
Okay.
I never
Nice.
was a Les Paul guy. I was like a Flying V Explorer guy, and I just picked this up at the store, and like it just felt like I didn't have to think playing it. It felt like an extension of my body, which I never really had as in a guitar before. And I was like, well, I didn't want a Les Paul. I can't afford this. I'm an intern making minimum wage at agency, but it was like total Wayne's World. It will be mine. It will be mine. Like, that's what it was. So luckily they put it on layaway for me, and I worked for a while. And I got it. And I mean, there's probably thousands of hours on this thing. Like, when I die, I'll be buried with this, I think. So yeah, that's it. It's the black 1960s Les Paul.
Awesome. That's the thing I love about guitars. And whenever it's like, oh, you have so many, it's like each one's different, each one has a different vibe. You can pick up each one and it makes you do a different thing.
You can't golf with just a putter. That's what I tell everyone. And they're like, yeah, but you can only play one guitar at a time. And I'm like, hey, let's not get into the details.
I do like to mention that out of all my guitars, like, there's not really any like repeating shapes, or if it is the same shape, it's a different scale neck, or it's a different different kinds of pickups for different tones or whatever. So different tools for different foolish things. But all right, Jordan, thank you so much. David, I can't go without mentioning, though, you have a ton of awesome like horror mini posters behind you.
Yeah.
I was trying to get a good look at them, but during the recording here, they just get very, very pixelated.
Yeah.
If you could
Sorry.
pick any one of those and have been on the set while they
Oh.
were making that movie, which one would it have been?
Good
Oh,
question.
great question. That's a tough one. Okay, so these are Japanese chirashi. Chirashi in Japanese movie theaters, they give these out. On the back of these is the cast and the little synopsis. So they give out like
Mhm.
little movie posters when you go to the theater.
Okay,
So
that's
if
cool.
anybody's interested, yeah, you can get them on eBay. But man, there's a lot. There's a lot back here. The cinephile in me should say, oh, okay. The cinephile in me should say, and well, I won't say that one because you guys can't see it. I would love to be on the set of the Beastmaster. Did you guys ever see
Nice.
Beastmaster?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
For two
Oh.
reasons. That was like the movie that TBS played all the
Hmm.
time when I was growing up. It was
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
rerun on TBS and then USA Network.
Hmm.
And when it was on, I just watched it. I was a big sword and sorcery guy,
Yeah.
and so it really like sort of instilled the love of movies, even though it's so silly. It's like so silly, and it does have a great horror element to it, and but it also it sort of has a when you look at it, it's actually ridiculously well filmed and really well lit. Um, and it wasn't Roger Deakins, but it's a famous cinematographer that actually filmed Beastmaster. And there's a behind the scenes tying it in with the previous conversation of Beastmaster. If you get their Blu-ray of 10 years ago, there's a behind the scenes where this guy lit it with amazing little tricks, like flashlights being shown through paper cups and just like cool little tricks like that I remember when I was watching it. I
Yeah.
was like, this is a movie that is a B movie that's played countless times on TBS or HBO. The joke always went, what does HBO stand for? Hey, Beastmaster's on. That's what HBO stood for in the 90s. So um, but it's like a B movie that everybody's like, oh, that silly movie. But then when you watch the behind the scenes, it's like a really well made, a well crafted sword and sorcery film. So I would love to be on that set. I also have to admit that there's a lot of nudity in that film I did not know existed because I did watch it on TBS for all those years. And then when I watched it in my 20s on the DVD, I was like, the people get naked in this film. This is great. Like, well, I've just missed everything.
I want the
So
cable cut. What
yeah,
is
It's like
exactly. I
a
know. Like,
whole new
the
experience for you.
whole new
yeah.
experience. Same thing with like letterboxing. That was my first experience with letterboxing. And, like I didn't know they
Okay.
did like pan and scan where they would
Yeah.
literally for television just zoom in on different parts. And so when you watch the film in its original letterbox, you're like, this is actually really good. So yeah, love to be on the set there, see some nudity, see Rip Torn get really nasty as a bad guy.
I
I don't
thought you
know.
would have picked Roadhouse. I thought you would have
It's
picked the Roadhouse
I
Swayze throat whipped on the pond.
so my backup is Footloose. I would love to have been on the set of
Okay.
Footloose just because I wouldn't have mind dancing the whole time. I think that would have been really fun. So yeah, that's a great question, and I will be torn about it
Uh,
for the rest of
that,
the week.
that's awesome. I've gone down kind of a rabbit hole of watching a lot of like YouTube channels that kind of talk about these old bad movies.
Mm.
Channels like Good Bad Flicks.
Oh yeah,
One's called Movie Timelines, where they kind of just go over a lot of these older movies and just like, but it's all with love and all that. And so I'm like, it's kind of funny because I'm being reminded of a lot of these movies. Like, I saw this movie. That's what that movie was. Like,
Mhm.
that's where I realized like I had seen that movie Society when I was a kid, and I'm
oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
like it like unlocked a memory. I'm like, I should not have watched that when I was a kid.
No, no.
Like, I don't know. Well, where were my parents when I saw this on cable somewhere?
Yeah, right.
And if you don't know what I'm talking about with the movie
Um,
Society, you don't want to know.
no. Very true.
But anyway, it was that was a great choice because I was thinking like was he gonna pick Silence of the Lambs? I think that's Blues Brothers. I see in
Mhm.
the bottom there. Like
Blues, and
which one
like
is
I
it?
was gonna pick. There's like the bunch that go up. The
Yeah.
Sting, like old classic Robert Redford, Paul Newman film. It's one of my favorite films of all time. I don't know if anybody's watched it, but if you haven't, I always buy, whenever I see the DVD anywhere, I buy it. It's like one of the, like, like serial killers buy like books. What's the Catcher in the Rye, I think was the book that
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
would collect. I buy the Sting. So if you guys need a copy of the Sting, you let me know. And I'll send it out because I have way too many.
That's nice. And I have to mention this because it brings up a very strong memory when you mentioned Panascan and Letterbox. Like that was one of the things I learned. So when I finally had like my own money to buy movies on VHS when I was, a burgeoning teenager, I had to make sure I got the letterbox version because I didn't want to not have everything on there. And I had a
Mm-hmm.
very distinct memory of getting pissed off at my older brother for picking up the pan and scan version of Dragonheart and not
Oh.
the letterbox version that I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, thank you for bringing up that memory for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
And kids,
unleashed past
you know,
trauma. I'm so sorry.
yeah.
Dragonheart was a
No,
great
no,
film, though.
they don't know how good they have it. Everything's 4K restored, upscaled,
Yep.
everything. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know the joys of realizing this movie I've seen 1,000 times. Oh wait, there's actually more movie
Right.
in here
Well,
somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
and also
Either through editing or through the crop.
yeah, every screen is already formatted theatrically. It's all 16:9
Yeah,
or 235 or whatever. So like even the actual screens, yeah, they show all of the information. But it is a testament to a lot of the stuff that I loved. I watched it on our downstairs basement television that the tube was burning out. So the top was those like random green, red bar colors. Do you guys remember when that would happen to the old tube
hmm
Yeah, the
style
RGB
television?
bars. Yep.
The RGB
Mm-hmm.
bars. The sound was terrible, so you'd have to sit like super close to it, and it sounded like it was being recorded in a tin can. And I still loved the movies because it was about the story, right? It was about like
yeah,
how that came
Mm-hmm.
across to you. And so I feel like us and some of your listeners might sort of be getting a little sentimental too, because it's like, man, sometimes that was the best way to be introduced to it.
yeah,
Or sometimes when you pick up a comic back in the day when you didn't have a lot of money, I would pick them up at garage sales, and they were just torn to shreds.
hmm
But you'd read it and you were like, this is so good. It's such a great
Mm-hmm.
little ride.
yeah,
And it didn't matter that it wasn't pristine, 9.8 needs to be slabbed. But it
yeah.
was just that story that invited you in and gave you a great hug. And so I think that's why, and I'm going to speak for Jordan here, but that's probably why we still want to create in this medium, to make sure that we continue to
Totally.
give those creative hugs.
Totally.
I can't disagree. I think we can just all agree on that our generation is the best. Everyone else sucks.
That's
You know,
exactly what I was
been
going
dropping
for.
the
Yep.
ball.
Yeah.
You know, that's why retro gaming is so big, and people are trying to buy CRTs again because they, you know, it is funny seeing like when movies get like that 4K restoration or whatever, and then you see shit in the movie they never wanted you to see because they didn't think you'd be able to see it with the
Yep.
resolution
Yep.
they
Yeah. Or
had and stuff
Yep.
like
pause or
that.
yeah.
But that's that's all I guess. Picking this up, a recording stopped suddenly. I have no idea where it stopped, so hopefully it ended at an appropriate point for us to do this. But in the end, guys, I had a ton of fun chatting with you. I could do it
I
for the
love it.
rest of the night if you would let me, but we all have lives and things we need to get to. So, David, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on. When the
Thank
music
you.
wrapped up and there's a trade collection and all that, I would love to have you back on. We
Great.
can chat more about it.
Yeah, I'm Jordan Hart,
I can
and you can
see if
find me
you
on
talk
Instagram
about how
at
trying to
Jordy
read my mind
Jordith.
with the ending.
It's a little
Here's
hard to
hoping, yeah.
spell. If you just go to Image
But
Comics
so now
in
is
the
the time to let
Instagram
everybody
page, you'll
know
see a
where they can
cabinet
find you
post.
all
They
on social
tag David
media.
and
I'll make
I
sure
and
there's links in the
Kiara on
show notes
everything, so
below
you
where
can
they
just
can
see
pick up
our
the
handles
cabinet
there.
and check it out, and
And then
any
David
other
I will
information
be
you want
at
to share with
WonderCon
everybody.
in a few
Great.
weeks, as well as San Diego Comic Con this summer, and probably New York Comic Con, aside from some other small shows. C2E2 for me, some northern New York shows for Dave. Yeah, if I'm not at a table, look for the tall dude with long hair digging in a long box. It's me. Come say hi. Yeah, the Megadeth. No, Metallica. Metallica now. Yeah, yeah. Yep, yep.
Oh, okay.
With a Megadeth shirt. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah, you're gonna correct. You're gonna correct, especially for
Yeah.
C2E2. Yeah. Um, yeah, and Don, thank you so much for having us on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I think a one before I tell you my handles, one thing that's really important, I think, for artists to do is to introduce um, each other to things that we're passionate about that some of us might not know about. So thank you for doing that for me and introducing your love of metal and your love of music by giving me some great recommendations. So I really look forward to those. And my handles, I'm David Ebeltoft on Instagram, and I am still on Twitter. I do Facebook as well, so that my old aunts can, can like my posts. So yeah, you can find me on those three channels. Other than that, I will be exactly where Jordan said I'll be for all those conventions.
Awesome, awesome. And David, thank you for sharing your likes because I got some new bands to check out myself.
Yeah,
One of the things it's a selfish endeavor, this show for me, because people share things that they love, and it's new cool things for me to check out.
heck
And
yeah,
that's something
Great.
that is I realize is something that kind of feeds me
That'd be great.
all the time.
oh,
So,
it's
thank you
necessary.
guys
Yeah,
for sharing
of
what you
course.
love, and also for making the cabinet and all that because again, I've
That
gushed over
sounds
the book a
great. Yeah,
lot, but
I'll come by for sure.
it's fantastic. I can't wait to read more. Jordan, I'm going to be at C2E2 as well. So hopefully we can meet in person and say hi. Um, I'll be tabling with my collaborator on Spend the Night, Jackie Kong, and my other collaborator,
Yeah.
Steve Bryant with Evie and the Helsings, will be there too. So we can all
Yeah.
say
Do it for
hello
Don.
and
Yeah,
all
come
that.
on.
And so,
Thank
gentlemen,
you,
once again,
Don.
thank you so much. Everyone, go check out the cabinet, Image Comics. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes below. Buy the hell out of it. Get this book, on the as high as we can get in the charts, so we can have all the arcs. For me, do it for me. Do it for old
Yeah,
Danny
do it
J,
for
guys.
Don. Do it for Don. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.